Special occasion to be able to welcome you here to Trinity University. My name is Angela Bridenstine, and I'm the chair, along with all of my colleagues in the Department of Education, who are both here and virtual, to welcome you on behalf of our Center for Educational Leadership and our university to the 41st Annual Trinity Prize. Can you believe that? 41 years of the Trinity Prize. It is a joyful celebration for us each year at Trinity when we get together to honor our local educators, our distinguished educators who stand here in place for all of our teachers in San Antonio and our greater region, and the essential role that they play in our community, our state, our nation, and the world. Before we continue with the program and the celebration, we'd like to take a moment to recognize the challenges and sorrow of the last year. COVID-19 has not only changed our lives, but also resulted in. Will you join me in a moment of silence and reflection? Thank you. This afternoon, we recognize and honor all educators who, in the face of challenge, rose up and responded to the call for our profession to step up in even more integral, responsive, inventive, and needed ways. Among those educators are our honoree teachers, who we'll meet a little bit in depth later. But teachers, would you please stand now and be recognized? We also have with us district and organizational leaders, superintendents, principals, and school leaders. Could you please stand so that we can recognize you? If you are a teacher colleague of one of our honorees, or you play a role in pre-K to university education, please let us recognize you. And that includes our National Teacher of the Year, who's with us today, Tabitha. We would also like to recognize the important role that family and friends play in supporting teachers, students, and the profession. If you are a family member and friend, would you please stand? We know that there's so many family, friend, colleagues who could not be with us in person today, and we really had a difficult decision when we were deciding to do this with a small group in person and virtual, or to do it entirely online. And our friends at Whataburger convinced us that we should try to get together in person as much as we could. And we also knew that this was the true reality of what teaching is right now, that we're all together in the room, even if some of us are in the Zoom room. And so we want to say that we're surrounded in this moment as if all the seats were filled with the people who are with us virtually. So we thank this crowd for being hearty, and we know that it was very difficult to limit your decision to just a few people to be here. Lastly, if you're a member of our Trinity team, would you please stand? This program would not be happening without you and your commitment to our work and mission. Our Trinity team, you know who you are. At the end of the program, we're going to introduce you to our next generation of teachers and leaders, our Trinity undergraduates and graduate students, who would love to be here in person, but again, due to the restrictions of streaming, are in classrooms at Trinity and at classrooms across the city where they're doing their internships. So a shout out to all of you, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. And finally, we would like to recognize and introduce Donna Tuttle, Group Director of Brand Communications and Culture, and thank her and Whataburger so sincerely. They are our event sponsors and amazing leaders in community support and engagement, particularly in their Feeding Student Success initiative. Thank you to Donna, Melba Harris, Sydney Montero, Dash Blaker, CEO Ed Nelson, and everyone at Whataburger. Before we welcome Donna to come up, I need to call upon a very important person to bring a greeting from the university and also join me in thanking Whataburger. Long day. Vice President of Academic Affairs and our Chief Academic Officer is Dr. Denise Jones. Dr. D, as we call her, is, as we are proud to say, a teacher and professor of education. She started her career as an elementary teacher in Dallas, and since I've heard her story, I say her formation as a teacher began as a very young student. She has held many teaching and leadership roles in K-12 and university education, and she has received many distinctions and awards in education, including being inducted into the Educators Hall of Fame in 2018 by Gamma Tau Chapter of Phi Delta Kappa National Education Sorority. The Hall of Fame spotlights and recognizes outstanding educators in the San Antonio area. This is a very special year for Dr. D. She is retiring after a distinguished career of leadership in our profession. Please join me in thanking Dr. D for her contributions to education and welcoming her to offer words of affirmation, congratulations, and thanks to Whataburger. Dr. D. Let's hope that she can get the cue. There she is. Gabe, can we give her the cue from you? Or Jonathan? She's ready. How about the chat? Yeah, there we go. Let's see if that'll get her. This was our one thing today that we thought if anything takes a little bit of technical specialty, it would be this. Let's see. I think I can text her. Wouldn't that be the modern solution? Alejandro, Jonathan, Gabe. All right. Well, I will try to text other things around. Does that sound like we would do if you were a classroom teacher? Exactly. You'd keep shuffling. All right. So I'm going to bring up Donna Tuttle. How's that? And then we will come back. So just a moment. Let me say a little something about Donna Tuttle. It is my immense pleasure to welcome Donna Tuttle to offer her words on behalf of Whataburger. This is very special for me because I know of Donna's history with Trinity University and Whataburger, two places where she has had a profound influence. She's been a formative influence on the lives of Trinity students as a mentor and mom to so many Trinity students as the better half of Donna and David Tuttle, our Dean of Students. At Whataburger, she's been a tremendous leader as Group Director of Brand Communication and Culture. At Trinity, we've been in awe of the Feeding Student Success initiative that Whataburger has been championing. It's their way of saying, as Dr. D says, to change the world, and they are. Donna, can you please come forward to be recognized and offer some words to our honorees and to our audience here and online?
Well, it wouldn't be a true event if we didn't have technical difficulties. I wouldn't know what to do. Thank you, Angela, and welcome everybody. It's a really exciting event. I want to quickly give a shout out to the Whataburger community team, Melba Harris and Sydney Montero, who are my fierce woman colleagues who put this all together. So I basically show up and speak, but they do all of the work, hard work behind the scenes and do all the work with the schools, and they're just amazing. So thank you. And then our local restaurant team who will be feeding you afterwards. These are people with hearts of gold. These are our family members. We call our employees family members. And so they are so happy and so eager. They love teachers so much, and they're happy to serve you today. This is a very special moment for me for a variety of reasons. One, I remember Angela, Dr. Bridenstine to others. I can call her Angela. I'm older than she is. As a student at Trinity, and even way back then, she was a true leader at heart, pushing boundaries and creating great change through the Student Programming Board. Her successful career, and the immense impact her work has had on education. Her energy and enthusiasm to keep advocating for the profession is so contagious. I do want to say that I think that the staff at Almost Park HEB are terrified of us because we mostly bump into each other at the grocery store, and we mostly spy each other over the avocado aisle, and then we run toward each other and scream and hug, and they just don't know what to do with us. So anyway, I don't get to see her as often as I'd like. Maybe I need to go to the grocery store more. The second unique perspective I offer, and Angela alluded to this, is that I'm a mother of 4 children, ages 18 to 29, all who grew up on the Trinity University campus. As the wife of Dean David Tuttle, I have had the privilege of living in a university housing and raising a family amid an incredible and culturally rich neighborhood, with a plentiful supply of babysitters, guitar teachers, math tutors, and a steady stream of guest lecturer events that opened up our minds and our hearts. David is retiring at the end of the month, and we've already moved to a new house, but this campus and all of the beautiful memories that took place here, both I and my oldest son were engaged here on this campus, not to each other, but done. And so it always will feel like home. And the third reason this event is near and dear to my heart is because of my role at the wonderful brand I get to work at, Whataburger. At Whataburger, we have one philanthropic pillar, one focus, Angela mentioned, and that program is called Feeding Student Success. Whataburger's goal is to make each community it serves a better place by inspiring and investing in the future of its students. The program has 3 main components: on-site resource rooms that offer student supplies and other resources. We started this in 2020, and we've opened 3 to date, one at UTSA, one at Grambling State, and one at Alabama State University, and more to come, primarily in the HBCU space. The second part of our program involves Whataburger's Feeding Student Success Scholarship. This is coming soon. It's $500,000 set aside for student scholarships across our 14-state footprint, primarily to Black and other minority students. The third part of our program is hyperlocal giving to programs that are helping support student success, and that's where the Trinity Prize in Teaching comes in. Obviously, supporting teachers, the very people who have had the biggest impact on students' lives, is extremely important to Whataburger. All 50,000 of our employees, whom we call family members at Whataburger, want you, our teachers, to know something. We see you, we hear you, and we thank you. And we are inspired by your big hearts and daily courage, especially during these past 14 months when COVID robbed every single one of you of the biggest advantage you had, the in-person connection between you and your students. That human connection is so powerful, and we know how hard you worked to make that magic happen over Wi-Fi and computer monitors. We watched as you dealt with the rotating doors of open and closed schools, wrestled with technology, masked up, sanitized, dealt with distracted students, navigated stressed out parents, and repeated the instructions one more time. We were in awe of all the ways you made school fun through Zoom, found ways to drive by your students' homes to leave packages or wave hi, and how you managed to deal with your own family struggles during the pandemic. These disruptions to education during the pandemic are turning people away from the profession, according to a really recent New York Times article. And so Whataburger is here to say, please stay. We need you. So now this is the part where we get to present the big check. This is always my favorite part because I don't write checks this big. So Melba here is going to help us. So we'd like to present to Trinity University for this specific teaching program a check for $15,300.
And teachers, you're about to find out where this is going because this is going to you. And you're going to find out how. Thank you, Melba. Thank you, Donna. Thank you for those words and the charge and the request to please stay. Do stay. I believe that we have Dr. D now, so this is what we do. We're resilient and we pivot and we change and we make it work. So I believe we're about to switch on and hear Dr. D. So let's see if we get Dr. D back. Dr. D, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We've done your introduction, so we are ready to hear your welcome and affirmation for our group of teachers, our educators who are in the room, and their friends and family. Let's see if I can just call her. Let's see if she answers. You got her? There she is. Yes. Thank you. Yes, Dr. D.
But as I showed you today, there are a few things I have to do in my short reading and opening comments. First, on behalf of President Anderson and all the faculty and staff of Trinity University, let me extend a sincere and robust tiger welcome to each and every one of you. We're glad that you're here, and we feel honored to host this special time of recognition for the best of the best among K-12 educators in this area. Thank you to our corporate sponsor, Whataburger, for their continued loyal support of this worthy and wonderful event. Without your charitable endeavors, we would not be able to make this day of recognition for our outstanding teachers possible, and we are so grateful to you. To our National Teacher of the Year, Tabitha, we're grateful for your presence, and we look forward to your words of commitment and wisdom that you will have to share with us. Next, I offer a hearty congratulations to all the honorees today and the principals or superintendents who are present to support them. Through the selection process, you've been deemed worthy of these recognitions and awards. So go ahead and bask in the appreciation and acknowledgement of a job well done. Today is not the day for you to be shy. Instead, kick up your heels and soar with the realization that you have made a difference. And finally, it is not in my professional DNA to not take advantage of the opportunity to offer some words of challenge as well as encouragement. Now, in this crowd, it's likely that I'm preaching to the choir, but as a good friend of mine, Dr. Beverly Tatum, once said, even the choir can benefit from a good tune-up every now and then. So here we go, a few words of tune-up to every educator who is present here today. Without a doubt, students need committed and capable teachers. But guess what? They need more. Students also need a clean and safe learning environment, operative computers and appropriate software that are up to date, and accurate curriculum that is culturally responsive. But guess what? They need more. What students are able to accomplish in school is shaped by the school's organizational arrangements and routines, attitudes, expectations, beliefs, and the relationships among everyone in the school building. Most recently, we have experienced even the challenge of maintaining all of these in a virtual learning environment that really stretched us all beyond what we ever dreamed possible. In other words, students need a school culture that makes it inevitable that all students will receive a socially just, critically thoughtful, and first-rate education. Our school cultures help shape what students see, how they feel, and even what they think is possible. But culture, when they come face to face with cultural differences, more and more researchers and educators of excellence agree that good schools have cultures that make sense, allowing faculty to teach our students well and sensibly designed for our students to learn well. So as you celebrate your greatness today, I feel compelled to challenge all of you to think about our own increasingly diverse school cultures, those places where teachers can teach well and students can learn well. As you think about your own time to assess those places of labor and the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of their design for learning. As an educator for the past 40 years, from public schools to the university level, and as one who has seen the landscape vividly changing beyond the traditional pedagogy and practices, I encourage you to think about some specific things. Do your schools and learning environments press everyone toward learning with an elevated sense of social justice and equity? Do your schools and learning environments provide broad and deep access to learning? Do they build excellence, brilliance, and creativity that's present in this place today? You will already have begun the art of changing views about whose culture belongs in the culture and whose intelligence is valuable to us all. So in closing, I leave you to ponder this final ideal. All cultural knowledge has been constructed at some point over time and is always subject to revision. It may even be helpful to remember that the best and wisest scientific minds decided that the earth was not flat, but it took a very long time before most of the world could make sense of or reconstruct that fact. Likewise, during this century, educators will be increasingly challenged to make sense of the layers of diverse knowledge accompanied in multiple settings. Let us all not only celebrate the good things that have been done, but let's each recommit to what it really means to teach, to change the world. The children are counting on us. Thank you.
And now we have gotten past the hardest part of the program, the technology. We're back to the people in the room. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Enrique Alemán, co-director of the Center for Educational Leadership, Radford Professor of Education, and director of our Trinity Tomorrow's Leaders Educational Leadership Program. He will introduce our special guest, our National Teacher of the Year.
Good afternoon, good evening, and thank you, Dr. Bridenstine. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce the National Teacher of the Year. Tabitha Rossbroy was an excellent student, so eager to learn that, in fact, she asked to go to summer school. As a child, regular classwork wasn't enough, and teachers worked to give her additional enrichment activities to keep her engaged. Those activities, including stepping in as a temporary substitute when the teacher had to leave the room, were her first taste of what it was like to be a teacher and set her on the path that decades later led to the honor of being named the 2020 National Teacher of the Year. Tabitha's work with young children started early. She was working as a babysitter by 13, often bringing crafts and activities for her young charges and forming a sort of babysitter's club with friends to look after multiple families at once. In high school, she taught Spanish to local preschoolers as part of a dual-credit college class. There, she observed the excellent teaching of Miss Pat, who didn't condescend to the young children she taught and was instead a partner in their learning, inspiring Tabitha to join the field. Now a 10-year veteran teacher, Tabitha teaches typically developing and special education preschoolers at Winfield Early Learning Center. Her classroom is housed at the Cumberland Village, a retirement community and nursing home, and the 4-year-old students interact every day with community residents who serve as volunteer grandmas and grandpas. The grandparents read to the children one-on-one every day and join the youngsters for music activities, field trips, and games. Tabitha's favorite is a modified game of bingo to help children learn letters and numbers up to 20. As the 2020 National Teacher of the Year, Tabitha has used her platform to promote the importance of early childhood education and the need for social-emotional learning for all students. Tabitha holds a Bachelor of Arts in Unified Early Childhood Education, including special education and typically developing students, from Southwestern College, and is near completion of her Master of Science in Education, with a concentration in English as a secondary or other language, at Fort Hays State University. She enjoys reading, particularly mysteries and crime thrillers, dancing, gardening, and spending time with loved ones. She lives in Winfield, Kansas, with her husband Tim and their cats, Mr. Darcy, Beak, Bezos, and Frankenstein. Thank you for
to be in San Antonio. I got an incredible tour after the airport from Angela. Wait, she's doctor, I should refer to you as that. I'm a first name person in preschool, Mrs. Tabitha, most affectionately known. And I have just had a wonderful time since I've been here. Last night, on the recommendation of some students, I went to the Pearl. I ate outside at a brewery, had some delicious fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, and a little bird jumped on my table and pecked a piece of my cornbread and then flew away. I thought, this is really a family here. Everyone's sharing. It has been beautiful. And I'm about this close to finishing my master's degree this weekend, actually, which, thank you. So I flew in yesterday, but all day today I worked on homework from the guest apartment. So that's the life of a student and someone who's working full time. But as was said before, I am the 2020 National Teacher of the Year, and I am really thrilled to be here to honor your work today. I am from Winfield, Kansas, and I'm going to say next slide, please, because I'm not using the clicker, so that'll be fun for me to do. It's about, a rural town of about 12,000 people. Can you see that? In south central Kansas, right where the star is. And it's pretty close to the Oklahoma border. But I wasn't always a Kansas girl. I was actually born in South Carolina, and I lived in San Antonio for 1 year when I was 3 years old, before we moved to Kansas. And I'm thankful that I've made my way back here to visit you. And actually kind of a funny story about how little I know about big city life. I used Uber Eats late last night. Obviously that fried chicken was not enough, and I was starving. It was like midnight, you get all off schedule because I slept on the plane. And I thought, I've got to eat something before I go to bed. I couldn't figure out how to give appropriate directions to where I was staying, and I thought I did really well, and I waited up an hour, and I was like, where's this food at? She sent a picture of where she had dropped it off. I don't even recognize where that was. So obviously I'm really terrible at using food ordering apps. I actually walked around campus last night in my bare feet, looking for my McDonald's. So if anybody sees a bag of McDonald's somewhere on campus, that's mine. Please ship it to me in Winfield. But I want to say how excited I am to be here to celebrate you, because each of you represent the hard work and dedication and love that go into helping our students achieve their highest potential. You make me so proud to be an educator. And when I heard what Trinity University does to celebrate you, it made me really want to move back to San Antonio. I always loved school. You heard a little bit about that in my bio. From elementary to high school to college, school was always a really safe place for me. My home was a little chaotic and loud, and there was lots of emotional turmoil. My parents were really where I felt like I could thrive. I can still name every single one of my teachers from pre-K to college. They were and still are my school family. So I love that Whataburger calls all of their employees family, because I feel the same about everyone I meet and work with. Many of my favorite memories take place at Udall Elementary School in Udall, Kansas. If you want to go to the next slide. It's a tiny, quiet town, even smaller than the one I live in now, of about 800 people. My first grade teacher was Mrs. Orr. She was also my little brother's first grade teacher 5 years later. This is me in about first grade over here on the right, and that's my little brother. He's super mischievous, if you can't tell from that picture. Mrs. Orr was the wife of our pastor at church. Her daughter babysat us, and we were really connected because it was a small town. My brother once told her when he was in first grade that he was sick and he needed to go home. And she asked him why, and he said, "I think I have gingivitis." So she said, "Oh, okay." And she called my mom right away, and of course he had to stay at school. He didn't get to go home for that. Just got to brush better, Vincent. But for me, I was trying to stay at school every day. I was trying to go to summer school. I never was trying to get out of it. I remember clearly waking up every day, eating my oatmeal or my pancakes or my Pop-Tart, getting ready to ride the bus or be driven to school, and just loving everything about it, especially that first day of school smell. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the chemicals they use to clean the floor, but there's something really special about that first day of school smell. But in third grade, I had a teacher named Mrs. Percival. If we can go to the next slide, please. And then the next one, actually. There it is. I get to talking, I forget to say, go ahead. In third grade, my teacher, Mrs. Percival, taught us how to write in cursive. And I remember that her handwriting was so beautiful. And at the end of the year, she wrote me this note, which I stumbled upon a couple of years ago when I was cleaning out the box of things my mom never threw away. She said, "Dear Tabitha, it has been very nice having you in my class this year. You have lots of ability to keep on reading as much as you possibly can. Reading is the best vocabulary and knowledge builder that there is, and you can do it all by yourself. Also, continue to practice the multiplication facts. I know they aren't as much fun as reading, are they? But it will make life in fourth grade much easier." She went on to thank me for a gift, but this note means so much to me because Mrs. Percival actually passed away about 10 years ago, and I still have this to remember her by. She knew me really well, as you can see by her words, that I loved reading so much. I was encouraging and kind, and I will never forget her. And I think she'd be proud to know that I'm a teacher now, too. And teachers, you are so special to so many kids. And I just want to encourage you to keep loving them well, like I know you will, because it really does mean a lot to them, even 25-ish years later. It's no secret that you're here because you represent excellence in our profession. And I'm sure that some of that has to do with academic excellence. But what I want to highlight tonight is how we educators are using relationships and connections with our students to lead us to that academic success. Just like Mrs. Percival, schools and educators are reaching our students through meaningful and loving connections. You are creating a safe place where children can thrive. Next slide, please. I'm doing it well. Okay. When children feel safe, this creates calm. When they feel calm, they are ready to connect. When they feel connected, they cooperate. And when they cooperate, this leads to better learning. I've been witness to this truth in full force the last couple of years in my teaching career. I teach in a very unique preschool program that is housed inside of a nursing home and retirement village. I teach for the public school and the special services cooperative there, and when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, our classroom is nestled inside of this nursing home where the residents, our grandmas and grandpas, are regular volunteers in the classroom. There are really very few moments in the day when we aren't together. So I'm going to share a video with you now about this partnership, and it's on the next slide. I think you have to click it again, sorry.
My name is Jesse Hatfield. They call me Grandpa Jeff. I'll be 91 years old next week. Greet the children every morning when they come in at 11:15. And it's a very, very wonderful feeling. It's just a real neat experience.
I want to say hi to all the little kids that are going to see this. My name is Cecil Thompson. This year I'll be 94 years old. I've been here 5 years, and I was sure glad when I see these kids here every day.
My name is Betty Long, and I'm a grandma to the kids. I enjoy coming down and reading to them on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And usually on Tuesday and Thursdays I come down and play with them. And they're just very enthusiastic, very, very loving.
I've been here at Cumbernauld about 3.5 years. I'm a former teacher in public schools and at Southwestern College in Winfield. And I've had experience from the kindergarten through college, but I've never been more challenged than I have been with the little bikes. They're tough, but are they sweet?
What do you think, Roger? What do you like to do with the kids?
With the kids? Oh, I just like to be around them and interact with them.
Your next question has to do with what it has done and its impact on my home life. I have to tell you that until you're 90 years old, you really don't know how you're going to feel. But I felt several years ago like I had already done anything I could possibly do. I'm almost ready to say that I gave up on an awful lot of my interests, my activities. And I have a little trouble expressing this, but I wake up in the morning so totally different than I did just a year ago. I have a reason for getting up. I have some all my life, but I've never had the feedback each kid. Now I see little 4-year-old kids responding in a way that I have never received before.
Now, there is a little blooper at the end that we didn't get to see. It's in a weird place. Oh, brought it.
Oh, yes. You know, I always ask the children, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me? And yes, they do. And sometimes they kind of get off track. But I was kind of taken aback by this question. I said, I was on a battleship in the Navy in World War II. And they said, were you killed in the war? And I said, I don't think so, I'm here. So there are questions like that, and when they're asking, you never know what they're going to ask. But they're so cute, and they're so serious. Thank you.
One of my favorite things about preschool is the ridiculous things that they ask and say every day. But I want to tell you about how this partnership shaped one of my students' lives specifically. If you want to go to the next slide. I had a student last year who I will call Sarah. Sarah struggled with emotional regulation and communication of her needs. She was super sensitive and really hurt by small transgressions of her peers. She would do things like yell at teachers and staff, melt down at drop-off time, lose control of her emotions, and a lot of times say she didn't want to come to school. She would really sob for a really long time, kind of uncontrollably, and it was really hard for me to see that I couldn't comfort her, right? Like, I was like, I have a gift with children, calm, and that was hard, you know. I wondered, like, what else could we be doing? If you want to go to the next slide. But what I realized is slowly, as we would leave our classroom to interact with some of the more fragile residents, Sarah's pouty demeanor would change. She would use gentle touches and smiles, and she loved to hear their stories. She would often report back to me things like, "Did you know that Grandma Sue used to ring the bell at her schoolhouse when recess was over?" And I could see that the more positive connection she got with the grandmas and grandpas and the other adults in our environment, the more her skills with her peers blossomed as well. So I'd gathered this anecdotal data, but I wanted to put some numbers to it. And so I did a little experiment, and I kept track of how many positive interactions Sarah was getting each day with adults in our classroom setting. So I followed her around with my little clicker, and I looked for things like high fives, conversations, smiles, hugs, any positive reinforcement. It was 53. She got 53 positive interactions with supportive adults in one day. So if an average school year in Kansas is about 180 days, that would mean by the end of the school year, she got 10,000 connection. Well-connected kids feel safe and loved, and they're able to access the learning centers of their brains. You know, I know this really viscerally, and I also know it as a professional. I know this from my experience both in and out of the classroom, that kids from all types of homes and all types of situations are in need of this type of connection. In everything we do as schools, we must remember this. And the celebration of all of you here today tells me that you're doing things like this in your classroom too. And we get to be here celebrating you during Teacher Appreciation Week. This is a treat. I'm not in the classroom this year, so I haven't gotten any cute little bags of chips with a saying or gum, anything, all that stuff that kind of piles up in your desk drawer. And I've been having some FOMO about it. But I'm on sabbatical as an ambassador for teachers and students all over our country. Can you click to the next slide? I think, okay, great. And at first, it was really hard for me to be away. All of my identity was wrapped up in being a classroom teacher. And so even getting this incredible honor, I had just this huge sense of loss the first day of school, and especially in September when school was starting. But lo and behold, we were short-staffed the first day of school, like many people, and I got invited to come and help because I was working from home at the time. So that made me feel a little bit better. But I was supposed to be traveling the country this year, living out of hotels and rubbing elbows with important people all over the country. And because of the pandemic, most of that had to take place virtually. This trip to San Antonio is actually my first out-of-state trip the entire year, and I was named last May as National Teacher of the Year. I have done some things in the state that have required, hours and hours of travel, but it was really exciting for me to get to do this because it means like we're moving in the right direction and that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. You can go to the next slide. It took me a while to realize that not only was I not going to be in the classroom, but that I wasn't going to get what every other National Teacher of the Year has gotten. And this pandemic has taken a lot from us. I still feel the pain of that loss every day, and I know that many of you are mourning the loss of what has taken from you as well, whether that be in your personal life or in your professional life. We can go to the next slide. But like many of you have this year, I decided that I wasn't going to let that keep me from making a difference, because that's what I'd be doing in the classroom, and that's what I committed myself to as National Teacher of the Year. Some people call that perseverance, but to tell you the truth, there's no way that I could let myself wallow in something that I couldn't change, because I wouldn't make it. There's no way I would get to make the impact that you're getting to miss in the disappointment of loss. So sometimes that might seem selfless, but it's also an act of self-preservation. It's loving yourself enough to keep going. All teachers have been in the spotlight this year, making that positivity kind of hard for us. And you'll often hear me speaking against toxic positivity because I think it can be really damaging to the advocacy work that we do in our field. But here's what I know. Being positive when things are hard is not always toxic. Oh, hold on. It's a choice and it's work in the same way that love is a choice that you make every day when your significant other leaves his floss pick on the counter again, or your child colors on the walls. You stand up for what's right, but you also make a choice to see the best in others and in your situation, because that is an act of love. Love and positivity do not make you weak, they make you strong. So how do we remind ourselves to keep choosing love even when it's hard? The answer is so simple to me that it seems really silly. Next slide, please. We have to reflect on our purpose, not just when we are first becoming a teacher or when someone asks us in those first several years, but we have to reflect on our purpose every single day. A few years ago, one of my mentors told me, when you know your why, your what makes a bigger impact because you're always walking toward that purpose. Our lives, our careers, we will continue to make an impact in those, even when it feels impossible, when we keep our why at the center of our decisions and our actions. That's choosing positivity. That's choosing progress. That's choosing to see opportunities, like Dr. D said. That's choosing to not give up, and that is choosing love. I want to thank you for choosing love for your students every day and for yourself. Thank you for your service to this profession that often doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. A prime example of this is once one of my students asked me, "Hey, Mrs. Tabitha, can I go to work with you one day?" And I said, "Well, this is my work. Teaching you is my job." And he said, "Then why don't I ever see you working?" That same kid sneezed in my mouth that day, if that gives you any indicator of how hard I was working. A lot of our work is invisible to the untrained eye, but it's happening at all hours of the day, whether our students see it or not, whether the community sees it or not. I see it, we see it, everyone in this room sees it, and we celebrate it. Communities, thank you for hanging in there right now when our kids need us the most. You are all truly heroes. Congratulations on this award. You represent what is best about education. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabitha, for representing teachers this year and for sharing your message with us to affirm us, to challenge us, and to inspire us, to remind us of our purpose. So now, the moment we've been waiting for, recognizing our distinguished educators. I was so honored to read your applications and in thinking while Tabitha was talking about the purpose and also this very special story that each one of you has that brought you to this moment. This is the 41st year of the Trinity Prize, as I told you, and for each one of those years, the distinguished educators have been presented with the Tiffany Crystal Apple engraved with their name, a gift from Trinity University and our president's office. We thank Danny Anderson for his unwavering support for this event, our department, and our Center for Educational Leadership. In addition, the teachers are also receiving a City of San Antonio commendation from our mayor, Ron Nirenberg, which reads, "The City of San Antonio, Texas, hereby extends official congratulations to you in honor of being selected as a 2020-2021 Trinity University Distinguished Educator. Your outstanding performance in education and the positive impact you have made on your students is truly worthy of this commendation. The members of the City Council are proud to celebrate your excellent teaching record and dedication to the profession. We further offer our best wishes for you for many more years of success. Congratulations, presented the 7th day of May, Ron Nirenberg, Mayor." Nice. And finally, thanks to the generosity of our sponsor, Whataburger, each teacher will be receiving the following: a $500 cash prize. We know that each year you spend personal funds for classroom supplies and student support, and you might be spending some of that in the same way, but we also hope that you will do something selfish once and for all for yourself. So do something nice, as Tabitha said, to take care of yourself. We're also giving you a $150 Amazon gift card for classroom resources and supplies. So that'll make you feel better for using the other money to do something for yourself. You're also going to receive a $250 cash award or Amazon gift card for a student organization or effort of your selection at your school or in the community that supports inclusion and diversity in education. And that's part of the Whataburger message for feeding student success. Get this, you'll be and here's a Whataburger for you, a Whataburger for you. You're going to be the most popular person at school. And you've been eyeing this amazing Whataburger basket, which includes so much terrific swag. We've all been looking at it. So there is spicy ketchup in there. There are enviable gifts and Whataburger for a year. You were wondering where that was going. It's not going to Trinity University. It's going to you. That's all of that right there. Whataburger are going to join Dr. Aleman and me up here, and we are going to give you the prices as you come down and around, and Dr. Flores is going to give you all the instructions.
Good evening, folks. I can easily say that I get the best part, the best job of the night. So, educators, when your name is called, please come forward to receive your well-earned recognition and gifts. Due to the realities of 2021, we will not be shaking hands tonight, but we will certainly greet you as you come up. Once you have picked up your gifts, please stop in front of the podium so our Tiger Network team can get a nice close shot for you and for your colleagues, students, friends, and families. Then you'll pause again by the curtain so that we may take a great photo of you. And audience, as they come up, let's give them each a huge round of applause because this is not the time to be quiet or shy. All right, to get started, representing Alamo Heights, Brian Stanton, Alamo Heights High School, subject, theater, principal, Corey Smith, superintendent, Dana Bashra. Quote, I have the unique honor of being able to help you find your voice and passion. In this space, you are allowed to be your authentic self, unapologetically. This is an environment where you are free to take risks and explore. Brian Stanton. Representing Kamal ISD, Jessica Watson Coleman from Fright Height Elementary School. Subject, art. Principal, Shelley Crawford. Superintendent, Andrew Kim. I have spent the majority of my career teaching elementary and Title I schools. This has shaped my educational philosophy that all students have the ability to create, and it is subject, 8th grade algebra. Principal, Nicole Lewis. Superintendent, Roland Toscano. It is a great honor to be recognized by my... Representing Edgewood ISD, Ryan Mattis. Ryan is not in attendance today, but we still want to recognize him. His principal will accept in his place. From Winston Elementary, subject 4th grade, Principal Claudia Sanchez, Superintendent Eduardo Hernandez. I don't want to sound repetitious, but it is truly the relationships that I have with my students. I have had the privilege of looping with 2 different sets of students from one grade to the next. I truly become invested in their lives and have even greater accountability in their success. I want to know that when they do leave my care, they are in the best position to be successful moving forward. Ryan Mattis. Representing Fort Sam Houston ISD, Francisco Serrata, Robert G. Cole Middle School and High School. Subject, sports medicine teacher and athletic trainer. Principal, Isabel Clayton. Superintendent, Gary Bates. Our school is on a military base, and every year there are students moving in and out. Often, we get students coming from all parts of the world. I believe that I have the ability to understand their feelings, emotions, and connect with them at a deeper level because I went through the same process of moving to a different country and attending a different school. Francisco Serrata. Representing Harlandale ISD, Annie Zoll. Kingsborough Middle School, subject 8th grade math. Principal Silvia Tovar, Superintendent Gerardo Soto. When I was in 2nd grade, I remember telling my family that I was interested in becoming a teacher because learning new things was so much fun. From my first year as a teacher, I knew it had been the right choice. You're continuously learning as a teacher because the students see who you are completely different from year to year, and you're having to alter your lessons to suit them. Annie Zoll. Representing Idea Public Schools, Caitlin McCloss, to sum up my vision for teaching and what I hope to portray through my work with students, families, and staff in these moments, it would be community, sense of self, inquiry, and access. Caitlin McCloskey. There you go. Representing Judson ISD, Bonnie Anderson, Millers Point Elementary School. Subject, music education. Principal, Barbara Smakel. Superintendent, Jeanette Ball. I'm so passionate about my job because I want to give music to others so that it can do for me what it has done for me. What has music done for me? It did not just help me to remember who I am, it allowed me, without walls, to define myself freely. Bonnie Anderson. Representing Lackland ISD, Danielle Rabida, Virginia Allred Stacy Junior/Senior High School. Subject, high school mathematics. Principal, Hunter Shelby. Superintendent, Bernie Roper. Some often say, how do you manage to raise a special needs child with all the current unknowns and at the same time teach 5 different math classes and not go crazy? My response is, I have always liked the challenge, and since Antonio was born, dealing with the unexpected circumstances, adapting on the fly, and thinking/problem solving quickly has been my normal, and I would not have it any other way. Danielle Rabida. Representing Northeast ISD, Stephanie Carrier, Churchill High School. Subject, AP World History. Principal, Todd Bloomer. Superintendent, Sean Micah. I am very humbled by this opportunity to represent my district, school, and the profession. I am surrounded by gifted teachers, and I believe in the service that we provide to our community. This COVID-19 experience has shown exactly how important education is for our society, and I am just honored to be part of the positive side of humanity. Stephanie Carrier. Representing Northside ISD, Gustavo Trevino, Pat Neff Middle School. Subject, 8th grade communication applications. Principal, Christina Sanchez. Superintendent, Brian Woods. I strive every day to ensure that my instruction intentionally builds a sense of belonging for students within our classroom walls and school. In order to do this, I build lessons that get at who my students are as people so that I can support and build upon the dreams they have for themselves or those dreams that they have yet to realize. Gustavo Trevino. Representing Randolph Field Elementary, subject 1st grade. Principal, Alana Hemingway. Superintendent, Brian Holt. Although I have switched grade levels and schools several times, I have always taught the beginning readers. I do not want them to feel like I did. My students know that I truly care about them and their success. I am persistent as I work to ensure that each student receives what they need. Audra Mitchell. Representing San Antonio ISD, Adriana Abundis, Sidney Lanier High School. Subject, high school algebra, dual language algebra, and Mexican American studies. Principal, Moises Ortiz. Superintendent, Pedro Martinez. The position that I hold enables me to share as much of enlightened through sustaining a culturally relevant, critical, and equity-grounded pedagogy and approach. This framework charges me to expand my impact and bridge together communities towards academic success, lifelong scholarship, and active transformative leadership. Adriana Abundis. Representing Somerset ISD, Juan Dominguez, Somerset Elementary School. Subject, 4th grade. Principal, Tracy Padilla. Superintendent, Saul Hinojosa. As I reflect upon my planning process, I realize that it requires creativity as I meld content, knowledge, with state standards and balance this with my understanding of students' abilities and interests. Within this process, I hold on to my overarching goal, my global worldview in which education means something, where education can impact the lives of my students, their families, and their neighbors. Juan Dominguez. Representing Southside ISD, Israel del Valle, J.J. Matthey Middle School. Subject, 8th grade math. Principal, Miguel Martel. Superintendent, Rolando Ramirez. My students know they matter to me as people, not just as students. I remind them that it is okay to be a kid and there is no hurry to grow up. My classroom practice is a bit unorthodox, but I don't see it as my classroom. I see it as their classroom. Israel del Valle. Representing Southwest ISD, Christine Bendeley, Crewald Road Elementary. Subject, 5th grade. Principal, Rosie Hidalgo. Superintendent, Lloyd Verstuft. The comfort to take risks in learning, as well as feeling safe and cared about, are top priorities for my classroom. When students feel secure, it allows me to teach them important life lessons in addition to the content. Many students have anxiety about what's happening in the world and how it will impact their future. Addressing and overcoming these fears together has been a foundation for us to build a healthy classroom community. Christine Bendeley. Representing Winston School San Antonio, Brenda Lane, the Winston School San Antonio. Subject, middle school reading, Texas history, and American history. Headmaster, Chad Karolak. This year, as COVID has been prevalent in our city, I believe that I needed to do what I could to make sure that my students would be able to keep moving forward with their education. With my limited knowledge of technology, I spent several professional development hours this past summer learning how to best serve my students as well as their parents. I continue to learn new things every day, and I have found that even at 62 years of age, I can continue to learn and benefit my students. Brenda Lane. Congratulations to all our recipients.
What an amazing group of educators. Can we please have one more round of applause to celebrate all of our educators? Our sincere congratulations to you all. It really was an honor to read about you and get to know you, and I can't wait for my students, future teachers, to get to know more about you and come see your classrooms and learn of your work. So before we leave this ceremony and head to the reception, sponsored by, what do you think we're going to have there? Whataburger. I'm so excited. It's going to be right behind us, just outside of Laurie Auditorium in our Ruth Taylor Courtyard. We want to recognize a few people. There's a special group of people who we always recognize at this ceremony, and they are our Trinity students. Our undergraduate students and our Teach organization are watching, and we also have our Master of Arts in Teaching interns who are just completing their year-long internships. They're going to be graduating on May 22nd as our next generation of interns. We thank you for being with us, and I'm really glad we made the decision not to Zoom them in one more time. We made that smart decision, but we know you guys are out there watching, so take some lessons from these teachers. Along with our MAT students, we have students in our Master of School Psychology cohort joining us from around the city and the nation, including Alaska, where they get to do their third-year internship all over. And we have our Master of Educational Leadership cohort who are completing their program in July and who are our next generation of leaders. How proud we are of this talent and leadership pipeline for our profession, and how fortunate they will be to start and continue their careers in the schools, the districts, and organizations represented here today. Thank you all for what you do to welcome our next generation of teachers and educators. Finally, we want to recognize a few people: the faculty and staff of the Department of Education and our Trinity University colleagues who contribute to this event, including Kevin and Alejandro here in Laurie Auditorium, our Tiger Network and Strategic Communications and Marketing team, Josh, Ryan, and Carla. And Josh, thank you for helping us with this Tiger Network. Our ITS team, Jonathan Hill, our Dining and Aramark team who are helping us with all of the procedures and protocols, especially Mario. You know Mario, Donna. Our Trinity University Police Department, our facility services, those unrecognized Martinez in our development office, and our Department of Education Trinity Prize team who had to be so creative this year in order to pull this off. So I thank Evelyn Williams and Gabe Garcia, Halissa Garza, Bruce Bravo, Senior Director of Conferences and Special Programs, Sarah Leslie Hayes, Judith Espinoza, and my co-chairs in this, Enrique and Alex as well. This has been an especially unique year to plan and adapt, and we are so thankful for them all. So, this concludes our ceremony today. We thank you for attending, and we hope you'll join us in the courtyard. We thank you for celebrating educators and education and being with us, and we are so proud to stand with you in education to conclude this year, to maybe get a little rest this summer, and to pick up. So you can join us out either door.